And we're live. Welcome back, everybody. Today is my birthday, and it's a very, very wonderful day. I was feeling a little unmotivated today, but after seeing the news this morning, which we're going to talk about today, and I got my dear friend Redhawk with me today to kind of mull over some of this stuff. It's just I couldn't help but be glued to my phone a little bit. It definitely hurt my productivity at work, but I couldn't help myself. And plus, everybody's telling me happy birthday and all this stuff, so that's all good stuff. And if you are feeling so generous, feel free to become a channel member for $2.99 a month. You get access to a Common Crown footage, which there's going to be definitely more of here within the next year or so, because we're going to be traveling a lot and all that good stuff. And also, I have a new guitar cabinet in my garage right now that I want to put new speakers in. So send me money, please. Anyways, Fox Sons Coffee for the greatest coffee that I drank this morning and drink all the time. Deemed Fit through the link below to get a little discount. Let them know that I sent you. And Tiger Fitness through the link below to let them know that the Matovic family sent you as well. And this Matovic here today is 30 years old. So thank you everybody so much for being here with me. Be a real quick stream. And like I said, Redhawk decided that he wanted to hop on. And I think we're gonna have fun chit chat. And so without further ado, everybody, let's rock and roll. And welcoming back to the show, Redhawk. How you doing, man?
Oh man, I'm just living high, man. I've been glued to Twitter pretty much like the last 10 hours, taking in the memes, taking in the sweet salt and all the copium. It's just wonderful to see. It's great to be vindicated. And I want to personally thank the greatest president of all time, President Joe Biden, with his 81 million votes for shitting on Kamala every single step of the way. I would also like to personally thank the gay race communist Chase Oliver, who couldn't even pass RFK for votes in the third party.
So, the guy who told him not to vote for. Oh my God.
Oh,
dude,
man.
it's wonderful. It is wonderful. And if the Libertarian Party burns down because of this whole situation, honestly, I couldn't be happier at this point. Like, everybody was all about the Mises Caucus takeover. And like, look, I get it. It's exciting. But though, to see Chase Oliver as the nominee after, we de-wokeified the Libertarian Party, and then your nominee is Chase Oliver. All right. I think it's time. We ran the 50-year experiment. Where's the match? Let's go.
Yeah, it's done. I mean, and I don't know what I'm allowed to say on your show or not, but that carpet muncher, Carrie Ann Harlos, who was bitching and moaning the last several days to Angela McArdle for trying to get into the good graces of the Trump administration, and Ron Paul, who looks like he's going to have an opportunity to actually do some good for once in his political career with the incoming Trump administration, saying, oh, this is statist and this is racist and this is just awful to get involved with these people. Just fuck all of you. Libertarians, every last one of you goes in the crystal. You're worthless. You're ineffective. You're all a bunch of F slurs. I'm so happy that your entire horrible political ideology is now completely burned to the ground. You all deserve it. Every one of you. Oh, it's wonderful to see.
Yeah, I seen a lot of people knocking Ron Paul for, and he didn't even say he was going to vote for or endorse Trump or anything like that. But he literally just said, hey, I'm excited to hear these ideas being talked about. And people are like, oh my God, Ron Paul's getting duped. And then both like, and even on top of that, Elon Musk was like, hey, I agree. Trump should distance himself from people like Mike Pompeo. And people are knocking Ron Paul for this. It's like, okay, well now, Elon, who's arguably been one of the biggest donors to Trump's campaign, is now in cahoots with Ron Paul, or at least they've had a conversation. I don't think this connection is going to go that deep. I hope it does, but we'll see. But just like the fact that this conversation is happening is a huge deal. And like, once again, these ideas that the liberty movement at large is all about are now being kind of pushed to the forefront with now the sitting president of the United States, who, the talking point is that's him against the regime. So when you kind of look at this through that perspective, I didn't vote for Trump, I'm like 25% regretful that I didn't, 75% I'm good with my decision. But looking back at it and then looking at all this right now, I'm like, man, this is at least good right
Well, I
here.
mean, just look at it. Like the main arguments from the libertarian movement for the last 20 plus years have been, well, we just need to get somebody in Congress, in the House of Representatives, one senator or something, because at least they can have some degree of an impact, and they have to be courted by the other parties, and maybe we can get something that we want. So, okay, well, now you literally have Ron Paul who's going to do that, but he didn't do it through the traditional means or the accepted means by which the regime libertarians, as people like Dave Smith would like to call them. So therefore, if you didn't do it that way, well, you can't do it this other way that's actually effective. You're supposed to be completely ineffective and get less than 1% of the vote. That's sticking to your principles and sticking to your laurels, and that's how we win. No, you guys are a bunch of F slurs. You're terrible. You're completely belong in the dustbin of history with your less than 1% vote. I hope every single one of you is never given the light of day ever again. God, it's so wonderful to see libertarians doing the crystal.
Yeah, well, you know what I got to say. I think Dave's perspective, as you mentioned him a little bit earlier, I think his perspective is right. Is that like now this is kind of Trump's last big bang. I got to say a little bit more optimistic than I was a couple months ago. I would say like 3 to 4 months ago, actually, like post assassination, I was like, man, this is looking pretty rough. Like Trump is not campaigning well at all. But then literally, it was like the last 2 months. I don't know what happened, who got in his ear, or what it was, but it was like a switch flipped, and it was the best campaign that he's ran since 2016. I mean, the garbage man thing, the McDonald's stuff, just those two things alone. I mean, the meme magic was off the charts, but like I said, where was this the rest of the campaign? It was pretty weak, but though, like he just came back, and I was impressed.
Well, he was hiring a lot of the same people on his campaign for 2016 this time.
Gotcha.
2020, he had hired different people, more like Republican establishment people, and look
Sure.
where that got him. But
Right.
yeah, he has a historic turnaround, a mandate to rule that a Republican hasn't had arguably since Ronald Reagan. I mean, there was, I mean, George W. Bush did win the popular vote in 2004 against John Kerry, but he didn't have the Senate and the House of Representatives and the Supreme Court on his side. And Trump has all of those this time. And it's not just by 1 point margins. He's got them by several. I think it's now the Republicans have a 5 or 6 lead in the Senate, and maybe like a 15 lead in the House or something. And then obviously they have the Supreme Court lead right now. So yeah, it's looking very good for Trump. And so we'll take our day today of our celebrations, but tomorrow the real work begins.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm feeling a little bit more optimistic, and I kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent, but like Dave had said that, like, okay, so this is Trump's big moment, right? As in, like, this is kind of his last push because he's going to be out of politics after this, or at least like he may be a little bit of a kingmaker, but I mean, let's face it, after this, he's going to be what, 85? Dude's going to be pretty fucking old.
I want him to add 4 more years to his term. I want them to do a January 2020 investigation committee headed up by Steve Bannon, who was just released from prison recently, mind you, because he was held in contempt of Congress for not incriminating people during January 6th stuff. So that guy's been sitting in prison, was recently just let out, and one of the first big speeches he made last night, he went just full bore vengeful son, which I'm so happy to see. He was just talking about Trump may be a nice man, but none of us are, and we're coming for you, every last one of you, which is amazing stuff to hear. So I want a investigation into 2020. I want people to be punished, and I want Trump to, with the absolute mandate of heaven that he has right now, just extend his term another 4 years. You guys stole 4 years from me. I'm adding 4 at the end of this term. What are you going to do about it? And everyone's going to be screaming and screeching. There'll be a great gnashing of teeth. I don't care. Go for it. Do whatever you want right now.
Yeah, I mean, I still think him losing 2020 was probably one of the best things that could ever happen to him, because now this kind of this really did a lot to discredit the Democrats, and I think this is what really needed to happen. And I've said it plenty of times, like I didn't think Trump deserved to win, but I mean the Democrats just beyond a shadow of a fucking doubt just needed to lose and take the hardest L possible. So I put this on Facebook earlier, but I think I said the 2 things I want for my birthday: support me by sending me money or subscribing to the podcast. And then number 2, take every last little fucking chance to laugh in the Democrats' face about their absolute failure and kick them while they're down every second of the day. Those are my only 2 birthday wishes for me, or, for me today.
Oh yeah, I mean, and you already see it. I mean, the knife is already being sharpened to stab us in the back from various conservacon, ink types, neocons, other Republicans, and such, saying, "Oh well, we need to be gracious in victory, and we need to be conciliatory to our left-winger cousins in this country." No, fuck these people. Punish them, every last one of them. I want journos in prison. I want everything to be done to these people, all of them. Take all the prosecutions, weaponize the DOJ, throw these people in jail, deport millions of people. I don't care if they're married. I don't care if they're citizens or not. Go full hog on this. Let's go. I'm so excited.
Yeah. Shout out to
become the right wingers they fear us to be.
Yes, exactly. Thanks, Jay Forte. Happy birthday, Thomas Massey and Joel Salatin running the Department of Agriculture has me white-pilled like a mofo. Supposedly Thomas Massey never got the out or an invitation for that. I hope he does. I think there probably isn't a single person who is even remotely close to our persuasion, even outside of like our perspective. I think pretty much everybody would be like, yeah, that's like the right move, especially Joel Salatin, one of the biggest advocates for regenerative agriculture. That is a huge, huge deal.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I'm very excited about that. I want to see so many of our friends and based individuals just put in any administrative slot. I don't care who it is. But yeah, now is the time to just Vladimir Lenin had this quote about the bayonet, right? And he has this quote. He says, when you thrust the bayonet, if you find mush, you keep pushing. If you find steel, you retreat. And right now we're finding mush. And there is no reason at all to just not go full pedal to the metal on everything right now. It doesn't matter how ridiculous it sounds to people on paper. It sounded ridiculous. So weeks ago that Donald Trump was going to have this amazing sweep like he did. I mean, it didn't sound weird to me. I mean, my map was literally identical minus Virginia. I thought Virginia was going to flip, but other than that, every single state I predicted was going to be correct. So it's just a little slightly less of a victory in the end than I was anticipating, but nonetheless, historic for Trump, bigger than 2016, electoral vote wise and popular vote wise. Is a huge mandate right now. And so things that were previously thought impossible are absolutely in the realm of possibility at this point. When I say he should be governing like FDR, I mean it. He has the opportunity to completely revamp the entire administrative state and just be a total kingmaker. And all it requires is the will. And I don't care how many great gnashing of teeth and complaining is going to be going on by journos who are showing like 10,000 videos of Consuelas getting deported or, complaining about whatever it is they're going to bitch about. It doesn't matter. All of you are being pulled to heel. Daddy is back.
Trump should threaten to pack the courts. I've always loved that line because it's always like it's one of the most mask off things that the Democrats have said over the last like 10 years is that we should pack the courts. Well, what does that mean when you start to think about it? It means that we want to jam through every single piece of legislation, every single law, every single action that the Democrats want to do. We want to pack the court with people who think like us so that way we could do whatever we want. Now, once again, if Trump even
this is why they win.
This, yeah, exactly. Because once again, Republicans would never even think to do about something like this. And X-Runner, if he were to say this, people would lose their minds. And I'm here for it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. They can't lose their minds any more than they have already. And losing their minds literally does nothing. So, it's over. They're screwed. There's nothing they can do. They could complain all they want, but the Supreme Court is on side, the House of Representatives is on side, the Senate is on side, the presidency is on side. It does not matter. You are stuck, and you guys absolutely get what you fucking deserve, and it's going to be wonderful to see. Now, the important thing for all of us on the online sphere, using what little influence we have, some of us more than others, is just to keep pushing this knife deeper and deeper, no matter what. You need to be as radical as possible. You need to be asking for the most absurd things, things that you never thought were even imaginable before. Just take a line out of The Art of the Deal itself for the big ask. You just need to go completely overboard right now. This is what the left does whenever they're in power. They throw out the most radical, ridiculous, pie in the sky idea that you wouldn't even think would be remotely possible. And it becomes law within 4 years of them interjecting it into the discussion. And this is what we need to be doing. So you could take today, you could celebrate, you can laugh at all of your memes and get together all of your compilations of leftists and libertarians crying and bitching and moaning and such, and we can all have a good laugh. But tomorrow, the real game begins. Narratives need to be pushed. People need to be put in correct positions of power. People need to be influenced and hammered nonstop. We will never get another opportunity like this ever again, especially considering the grave and dire situation is the United States is on a demographics perspective. You only have 4 years to make the most of this, so you better get working.
Right. All right. I want to show a clip. And now I watch the Majority Report to kind of keep my perspective somewhat grounded and to see where retards are coming from, if you will. And I caught this on the way home and I'm like, did she really cry on air?
We didn't have to fear people's blood and after Reagan. We did. And also had to fear acid rain. We've been here before.
We have. My one thing I'll just get a little emotional about is it does, as a woman, feel pretty shitty.
Too bad, bitch.
I feel like the humanity of women and their rights. No one cares.
Shut up, silly woman.
And she's right. Nobody cares.
God, these women are just so stupid. Yeah.
Oh my God. I wanted to specifically play that. And I've heard of people talking about this, and like I haven't paid too much attention. I just seen a lot of tweets. I'm like, oh man, this one, gotta quote tweet this one, quote tweet this one. And she's literally crying. Like, Trump's not even that radical on abortion personally. The people that are around him maybe a little bit so, but he himself really isn't that radical. And she's over here complaining, saying that like she's like, okay, whatever, but you know what? Your tears are delicious. I'll fucking take it.
It's literally like the fact that we even have to be concerned about this, and that this is like so-called an election issue that we have to talk about it during every debate. In the vice president and the presidential debates, all of them, the issue of abortion was brought up within the first three questions in all three of the debates. And it's like, there's nothing the president of the United States can do. Roe v. Wade has been overturned. It's literally in control of the states. Even if Trump wanted to institute a whole like countrywide abortion ban, based, but he couldn't even do that, even if he wanted to. So just the fact that everyone is just bitching and moaning about this is, it just shows you how far the propaganda has seeped into people's psyche.
Yeah. And that was really one of the only things that Kamala Harris had. So another thing I wanted to kind of hit on while we're here is she put up her map, and that was Emma Vigeland from the Majority Report. And she made the prediction that Kamala Harris is going to win all 7 swing states.
Lamau.
Yeah, that's what I said. I'm like, that's a pretty bold prediction there. I don't know how that's going to work out. And I don't do the fucking election maps because I sincerely don't know. I don't know how each state's going to go. I have an idea, but I don't know each state by state by state. I can't even name all fucking 50 states. So I don't fucking know how these are going to play out. So when I see people doing this, I'm like, do you really know? Or are you just kind of throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks? She said, all right, Kamala Harris is going to win all 7 swing states. And she got fucking burned on that prediction. And
she didn't even win one.
Yeah. And they were making excuses throughout the stream about, how Biden did this. He should have dropped out sooner. And, Kamala's ground game was great. She was better than Hillary Clinton, who didn't really campaign in the swing states that much. And it's like, there's this giant festering pus-filled fucking blister right in front of your face, and that is Kamala Harris. She's just one of the most unlikable candidates. It physically makes me uncomfortable to listen to her speak for an extended period of time because of just how the just level which she's speaking to you at. Like, Trump is funny, he has a personality. Kamala Harris has none of that. She was transparently the worst candidate ever, who really was running on nothing other than, I grew up in a middle-class family. I'm a black woman, or at least I am this year. I'm from a middle-class family, and, I was a DA at one point, and I'm not running on the Joe Biden legacy, but I'm not going to do anything different. Like, What else was there that just wasn't absolutely horrible about the last 4 years that we're supposed to take away from her?
I mean, it really just goes to show you and put it in context. One of the great heroes of the conservative movement is Ronald Reagan, and it really just puts into perspective the failure of Reagan's administration. One of the major things he did was amnesty, and which effectively made it so that a Republican can never have a Reagan victory ever again. So the demographics of the country, as such, when you looked at, excuse me, of the breakdown of the racial groups and such, is that, of course, whites in America voted over 70% for Donald Trump across white men and white women. And then everyone else, all the other demographics, voted majority for the left.
Right. And this kind of goes against a lot of the thing that you see a lot of more normie con right wingers talk about, is that, oh, white women must be stopped. But it's like, well, let's have a little bit of an extended conversation about this.
They've now voted majority Trump 3 times now in all 3 of these elections. It's like, it's a popular talking point for people to, throw shade at the women and such. I mean, granted, yeah, there's plenty of problems, particularly with their record as it relates to abortion and such. But as it relates to in the general elections, white women still vote for the right, and they vote for Republicans. I've talked about this for over a year at this point, is that the Republican Party is the party of whites. It's the party of whites, and it's the party of families. And the Democrat Party is the party of single women and literally everyone else. And if Republicans want to make inroads with these supposed, interest groups like Latinos and blacks or whatever. Also, it was interesting. We heard nothing but these amazing reports about how Trump is going to get more of the black vote. He increased his vote of the black vote by 2%. Just fucking nothing. It's like, wow, great. Thank you. You've done all that pandering. Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, all the Jamals and all the Julios are flocking to the right now, I'm sure. It's like, no, fuck off. You need to actually be pandering to your actual interest groups. And if you want to start getting, brownie points, because apparently, like, the right just can't help themselves but fight in the left-wing frame about how we have to embrace diversity and diverse values and a nation of immigrants and shit like this. It's like, fuck off. No, we don't. Heritage Americans by themselves, if you pander to their interests, will vote for the right every single time. We'll give you landslide victories just like this if you actually appeal to these people. So, and what do they want? They want low crime. They want secure borders. They want good paying jobs. They want some degree of reasonable benefits, and they want all illegal immigrants deported from the country. This is across the board what all of these people want, and they also want to love their nation and respect their history. So fuck off with your pandering to various other groups. The only thing that gets these groups motivated at all, and we have seen this time and time again, is Gibbs. And I'm not interested in giving blacks Gibbs. I'm not interested in giving, Asians or Jews or any other group Gibbs from a Republican Party background. Fuck off. This is my nation, and you're all just visiting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, dude, I completely agree. And that's kind of where I think Trump was going wrong with his campaign there. Probably, I would say maybe 6 months to maybe even a year ago, is that it was all about, look how great I was for the blacks, the Latinas, the Jews, great for everybody, but like the largest voting block of people who are voting for you, the people that I work with, the people that I'm related to, the people that I married, into my family now, the people I walk outside of my house and see every single day, the people I sit down and eat at restaurants with, those are the people who are voting for Trump, right? It's not the blacks. It's not the Latinas. So what are you doing trying to pander them? I understand you want to try to make a big tent, but like you said, it doesn't work. These people, they're not interested, obviously, in what the Republican Party's selling. Now granted, like you said, he got 2% more of the black vote, but what the fuck does that mean? And who cares?
Yeah, literally, who cares? And also, like, okay, so just say that you actually like increase your vote share from these people, right? Well, you don't just increase your vote share just by like saying words, right? That only works for one election, maybe once, and then you're never going to get this demographic of people again. So you have to actually start pandering to these people, which requires you to start giving into their demands. particularly when their demands are stupid. As I was saying before, just give me more Gibbs, which is what all the demands from these various ethnic groups are when it gets boiled down to it. And then also, what are you actually gaining from this as it relates to a client patronage kind of group, in the sense of, okay, I'm going to risk my neck and give you a reward. What am I receiving in return? It's like, okay, so I give the black vote a bunch of Gibbs, but what am I getting in return for like giving the black vote a bunch of Gibbs? Okay, so a demographic that is high in crime, low in economic output, low in business, business acuity and such. It's like, what are you actually getting by pandering to these people? And the Democrats do it because they're evil and they're commies and they want to destroy the heritage Americans, and they're gay race communists and such. So what they're getting out of it is exactly what they're paying for. But the Republicans, what you're getting out of it is not what you want. Like, you're trying to buy something that isn't for sale.
Right. Now, two things. B, thank you so much, brother, for gifting 5 memberships to the channel. I appreciate that, man. I'm looking forward to seeing you next Tuesday and next Wednesday. So for those listening, if you're in the southwestern Pennsylvania area, you can catch me and B Cornish and a Common Crown opening for Tommy Vexed next Wednesday at the Raindrop Inn too. That's gonna be a really, really cool show. But thank you so much, brother, for the gift and the 5 memberships and supporting the channel as always. And the second thing that I kind of want to tag on to what you were saying there is that if you're pandering to blacks, right? Let's think about this. And people can get mad about this if they want, but I mean, let's be honest here. 75% of those people were raised by single mothers, right? So even if they do become card-carrying Republicans who are, you know, share all the same values, what's going to happen when they start having kids, right? You just look a generation or 2 down, and then they're back to voting Democrat because they were raised by women, or, you know, they were divorced or something like that. And then all of a sudden they're back on the Democratic plantation. So is this like a long-term plan? Because to me, that doesn't really seem like it.
This really just goes to show you, and this can go into a wider discussion on the actual merits of democracy itself. But I mean, by all metrics, and this is a Thomas Sowell point that he brings up many times. I mean, he takes it different directions, but all the demographic, like the statistics we look at as it relates to life expectancy and family formations and wealth and all these other metrics that we like to look at. Blacks are doing better in the United States under Jim Crow than they are today, and they were doing better under slavery than they were under Jim Crow. So it's like, when you look at all these statistics, and it's like, okay, so what are you actually getting by giving this group of people the right to vote in your country? It doesn't seem to be working literally for anybody. So, okay, great. The Democrats now have a permanent voting bloc base, and that's literally all they get. And because you have a race of people that are just lower IQ than the heritage Americans who actually built the country, it's like, yeah, I do feel bad for these people, because it's like, well, what do you do? I mean, yeah, they were brought here against their will in most cases, and they're just not going to be able to compete in the aggregate to the same as like the actual people who founded this country. So it's like, well, what do you do with them? And you know, I mean, there's many questions you can have about this, but I mean, what we're having right now, where you just are expected to treat everybody the same, and it's like, this is also why the Republicans are so wrong about this too, because it's just like, oh, well, you just got to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and go into a meritocracy and such. It's like, well, I mean, yeah, I mean, I guess it's kind of based to some extent, you know, from where I'm standing. If you just want to have a meritocracy, and you're going to have like nothing but basically like whites, Asians, and Jews up at the top, basically, in most of our industries. So I mean, like to a certain extent, I mean, that's kind of based, but at the same time, it's like, okay, so do you think that's like moral and honorable to just have this underclass of people who like are just going to be unsuccessful in your society, and you're just going to leave them there? This is also why I have like a huge problem with libertarians, because there just like is no like concept of like a hierarchy or a king taking care of his serfs and such. It's like, no, I have much more respect for something that was going on in like the pre-1865 Southern agrarian culture, where there was much more of like a patronage network, almost like a patriarchy, almost, where like a plantation owner looks on his entire like population of slaves almost like a father to his children and such. Like, to me, that seems like a way more moral outcome than, oh, we're just going to box all these people into a ghetto. We're going to force them to compete in a society where they just can't compete with everybody else, which makes them want to increase more crime. And at the same time, we're going to propagandize them every step of the way that the people in charge just hate them, when really it's just, no, I don't really hate you. I just want you to not be put in a position where you can do me harm.
Yeah, and much to your point, it is kind of unfortunate, like that whole situation with, putting all the Haitians to that town in Springfield. Like the outcome of that is very unfortunate, and obviously the malevolent actors who put them there, we won't go there. But like, I was explaining this to some of my coworkers today. It's like these people have an average IQ that is like 3 standard deviations below the fucking norm. They're literally considered too incompetent to even function in the military, like 20 points too low in IQ to function properly in the military.
For
What do you
reference,
do? Yep.
literally for reference, there are some trained animals, elephants and dolphins and apes in
Orangutans, monkeys.
zoos,
Oh yeah.
that have IQs at that level. So you're
Yeah.
literally talking
There's some with
to,
even higher.
yeah,
Some of them
yeah,
have an
it's
100 IQ.
yeah, it's nuts.
Mhm. But like, what do you do with those people? And like, are we just supposed to sit there and say, okay, well, they don't really have any useful function in society, so we got to keep them here, and we have to find somewhere to house them, and they can't really work because they're not good at anything. They can't learn. They can't think, in any abstract way. Like you said, you have a permanent underclass of people, and why should average Americans have to pay for that and foot the bill for that? Like, I'm
This is why I
good.
think mass democracy is evil. This is really
Yes,
why I
yeah.
do think mass democracy is the worst form of government, and it is ruled
Mhm.
by, it is always run by a merchant class of people who, in historical terms, whenever you look at through the traditionalist lens, the most corrupt people have always been the merchants, and it's easy to see why.
Yeah, and I think most people would probably agree. Like, hey, if let's say I had a kid or something like that, and they came out fucked up, then I'm like, okay, well, then that's kind of like my problem, right? And I think, even in my mind, I think some situation of community welfare is fine for that, but when you just have a whole underclass of people who can have kids and families here. It's not like I don't want these people to breed, but like when they just keep expanding, and then, as I'm sure just as well as I do, here in America, it's harder for middle class families to have kids because it's like, okay, well, you have to have a car to get back and forth to work. You have to have a house, a mortgage, and then you have to pay for all your bills. Energy is very expensive. Like all this shit adds up.
And then you're
So,
taxed
like,
at 40% on top of that.
exactly. Right. And then especially when you start getting to overtime, or like for me, when I get my bonus, you look at how much do they fucking take out in taxes. Like how the fuck am I supposed to have a family right now when they're taking out literally 40% of my income? But then if you're, absolutely poor, then okay, well, kids are now an incentive for you because now you get huge tax bonuses. You get thousands of dollars every year to pump out a bunch of kids. I mean, I can't think of anything more evil than that.
Yeah, and your vote counts just as much.
Exactly.
It literally is a farm. It's literally what it is. You're literally livestock on a farm. All that matters is just numbers on the paper for votes. That's all it is. Which is why I say it's just a completely inhumane system. It's evil. Like people like frown upon monarchy and such, and feudalism and everything, but at least in systems like that, like your lords and such actually cared for like the people they were lording over and protected them, and there was a client patronage relationship and such. It's like, what do you even get today from this? I mean, like the clients and the patrons for the Democrat Party is such a fucked up system, because it's like, it's not even like the Democrats are clients for these people, or even really that they're patrons or even patrons of the Democrats. It's really like the clients are the middle class who didn't vote for this stuff or didn't ask for this stuff or don't have any control over this as well as to where their like patronage network is actually going. So the Democrats will steal from it, give it to their network. Those guys vote them in, and everybody else is fucked over in the process. It's just so unbelievably far removed from what an actual hierarchy in an actual society is meant to be.
Yeah, I think we might have been lagging there for a second, but I got most of that. The one thing that Pete and I talked about when he was on a week or two ago, and everybody should go watch that show because I thought it was really, really good, and Pete's just incredible. Is that and I'm guessing you probably agree too. I get a little annoyed when I see people say, "Well, you get what you vote for." It's like I don't think most people vote to have all these people mass immigrate into here or to be assaulted in the street by some third world immigrant. I don't think people vote for that. I do think people go in there and vote, think, hey, they're not educated well enough to know that Kamala Harris isn't going to be good for the country, right? But I literally don't think people are sitting here saying, oh, yeah, I want to bring in all these third worlders that are going to just absolutely ruin the country. Like, I think there's something really evil about kind of telling that to people when I just don't think that's the situation. I don't think people want their taxes to be raised. And like, there aren't referendums on these kind of things. There's just so much there that's just not accounted for when you go into the ballot booth.
Yeah, I mean, having like a referendum on something is like the closest you could possibly get ever for somebody saying, "Oh, well, you voted for it." Well, the other thing about this too is like, why is it that voting is like the coup de grace? It's like the Deus ex machina that comes in and makes something moral or not, or it's like, oh well, people voted on it, so that's it. I guess there's no more arguing about it. It's like, well, okay, so what if like everybody else like votes to take all of your stuff, literally like you're playing a game of kickball or something? Does that make it right? Apparently, like it's just like this mythology of democracy and voting as like this inherently amazing thing, and therefore it gives legitimacy to anything that happens because like a bunch of people got together and voted on something. It's like, well, most people are dumb as shit. Most people shouldn't be focusing on politics. Most people shouldn't even have the right to vote. And in a more serious time in history, I don't think people were remotely as political as they were today. I think we live in a very absurd time. Maybe it's because of social media, but I don't think it's just that. I think it's because we have such a feckless and incompetent and evil group of elites. I honestly would think that in a more stable society, in a more normal time, you probably wouldn't have the issues with social media whipping everybody up into a political frenzy. I mean, I hear stories from people like who spend time in Russia, in Eastern Europe, and such like this. It's like, I mean, they got social media, they got the first world living just like we do, and nobody's at their throats on politics and stuff. Like they just don't care to this extent. It doesn't like form such a big part of their lives where people are literally making Reddit posts about how they're going to redact themselves because Trump got elected. It's like it's very, very weird. We have a very sick society.
Yeah, I agree, and I definitely agree that it's not social media. Social media is more of like a symptom of a bigger. And as much as people say this, I'm not like a very spiritual person, but it's more of like a spiritual sickness where, like you said, we have a very fucked up system of these elites that rule over us who are very feckless and basically loot everything off of our backs, off the working class, to kind of pillage for themselves and then make decisions that ultimately benefit them and do not benefit the average person. So, and people feel like, hey, well, when I go in and vote, I'm voting to, make improvements for my own life because the people that I'm voting for are going to represent me. But once again, it's all NGOs and then, the government agencies at large working together basically fuck everybody that once again the elites are taking advantage of. So, and this is kind of where I shifted away from libertarianism, or at least being an anarchist, because if you had, let's say, complete and total anarchy, right? Let's go into Ancapistan. It really wouldn't look that much different if you were to get rid of the government today, because there's so many NGOs that once again bus in all these immigrants and then, also do all these shady deals where they censor people and work with social media companies. So and people could say, hey, well, if you had a free market, they wouldn't be as big. Who knows? But like a fucking private company putting its boot on its neck doesn't feel any better than the fucking government put its boot on my neck.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this before, but it's like libertarians just think that everything's going to be great if people are just left to their own devices, and you're not going to have, any government regulation over people. I mean, I agree. I would like to live in a place where the power of the state is significantly shrunk, but you still need something out there to put a check on the worst tendencies of human beings. All right. Mm. And so you either need to have like a strong moral system, preferably via a church, preferably via a strong sense of ethnic and racial identity and such. Preferably you don't have a community of millions upon millions of people, so you're so far past Dunbar's number that you just have no concept of who your neighbors are, or you have no sense of like a shared goal of community or shared history or anything like this. I mean, you need all these other things, which many libertarians would describe as being oppressive in some way, but it's like, well, what are you going to do, man? I mean, there has to be some way to put these tendencies of human beings in check. And then there's kind of like another side of this where you get like wokesters and also like regime libertarians and such, where have this expectation like, oh, well, if we just progress far enough, if we just keep progressing into the future via technology or via like some kind of enlightenment in the human race or something in the future, we're going to get to this point where we're just going to reach this level of like Rousseau's noble savage. We're going to get to the end of it. We're all going to get along and sing kumbaya. And the way I see it, as somebody who's more like traditional on the conservative side of things, that if you're going to go down that route, so radically changing what man actually is, as far as I'm concerned, that's an affront to nature and it's an affront to God. You're going to take out all of like the spirit and all the things that make man so amazing. So you make him into like this passive, feckless, like little F slur that just like gets along with everybody. It's like, who the hell wants to live in that? You know? So like, no, I just reject this view of like progress in all terms.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think there is good things about progress in science and technology. Like, I know people will knock me for praising Ozempic, but like, hey, the fact that we're starting to try to figure out how to make people a little bit healthier through a medication that does have its issues, but overwhelmingly has changed people's lives for the better. That's good. But much to your point, if we're kind of removing what makes, let's say white people, or Asians, or, whatever race, then there is such a thing as identity. And, I like the fact that I come from a Polish family of stocky mechanics who are loud and vulgar and have certain characteristics. And my wife's from, I think it's like, her family's from like South Germany, where her whole family's like these fucking giants. Like, there's things about us that I love. And the one thing that I always think about when I kind of think about, and we're kind of touching on transhumanism almost, I always go back to when A Common Crime was recording our first 4-song EP, and the engineer was trying to pitch correct Jen's voice, my singer, and he couldn't do it. He was sitting there and he was fucking with it, but then he just stops and says, look, you're so fucking spot on, I can't do anything with this. And to me, there's something beautiful about somebody that worked their ass off to get to that position, that no matter what man, machine, pill, powder, anything that you throw at it, it's still fucking raw and perfect the way it is. And when you get away from that, like you said, it's an affront to nature. And if you believe in God, which I don't know, it is an affront to God. And, I think there is something beautiful about the natural form that we've been given. And, this is kind of why I talk about health, is because I think it's fucking awesome to be able to deadlift 500 pounds. Like, I fucking earned that. Jen earned the right to sing. And, anybody who's listening, if you did something amazing, then, you know what it takes to put in work and get something awesome out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is why the fundamental change, or like the dividing lines between whatever we want to call left and right, I mean, you could point policy proposals on a political spectrum all you want for that, but basically what it comes down to, if you're on the right, you understand hierarchy and you respect it as a feature of human nature, and you're okay with that. I mean, one of the things you see from left wingers all the time is they try to like it's very weird what they do. They the attacks they throw on Trump, like you saw Tim Walz do this, right? He's like, Trump was lying to you. He didn't actually work at McDonald's. He isn't one of you. He isn't one of you at all. He's just playing pretend. And it seems very weird to me how like the left almost needs to have this like theater kid way of politics where like, oh, this politician is literally me. Or like, there's nobody on the right who actually thinks that Donald Trump is a low-class person. There's nobody on the right who actually think Donald Trump is a friend of the working man in the sense of, oh yeah, he's worked in the coal mines or something, or he knows what it's like to be poor. Like, nobody cares. That's not an attack vector for people you can use against us, because they understand hierarchy. They understand that it's okay for somebody to be higher up the rungs than I am, as long as he cares for me as a caring father. That's the whole point. That is the point of the right. We understand our position in the great chain of being. And the left, for all their arguments, whittle down to the only way to make a forest equals with an axe, and that's all that they do.
Yeah, exactly. And that the other argument to that, or at least another point on that, is that people always say, "Well, Trump's not a conservative." It's like, yeah, that's okay.
Good, that's why I fucking voted for him.
I think it's why people like him, is because at least he's fucking honest about who he is. I mean, you hear the way that he talks about women, it's like, yeah, that's like, you guys are surprised. Like, this is the way we fucking talk. Like,
yeah.
The fuck.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, he's not. You see the same thing from like the religious conservative side, which whatever you feel about it, it seems like from what we were getting to read on with these various abortion bills and such that went throughout the country, most of them passed, and only 2 of them didn't. Florida and Nebraska seem to be the only ones that did not pass a abortion amendment.
Florida didn't pass. Huh.
No, yeah, Florida didn't pass. Florida and Nebraska got no's, and then everywhere else was like Missouri and a couple other states all passed yes on it. So But so make whatever that what you will, but it seems like this religious conservative demographic is slowly dying out in this country. But they do the same thing. You know, they try to rest on their laurels and such and play like this holier than thou. It's very prideful, is what it is as well. It's like, oh, I'm so unbelievably important that Donald Trump didn't cater to me on this one issue, this one time, that like over this hyper like you know, like the set parameters or such like this. It's just like completely unrealistic. It's like the same thing with some of these characters that were like, oh, well, the state isn't going to be destroyed immediately, so therefore you should never vote to shrink it. You know, so it's like it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I think you and I might have talked about this before, but I was in I am in a group chat with some younger libertarian guys, and I posed the question to him like, okay, would you rather have somebody that lines up with your values in these positions of power, police, schooling, insert whatever makes you feel good there, or would you rather have people who hate you inhabit them? Personally, I'd rather have people that I know and love inhabit these institutions than people who don't, right? Because at least they're going to be either indifferent, differential, or friendly to me. I'd rather have that than somebody who absolutely fucking hates me.
It's literally like they can't understand conditional hypotheticals. It's like, well, what if you did have breakfast this morning? It's like that's the level of intellect that passes for libertarian thought these days. I'm sure Rothbard would be very proud with the organization that he has built and see what it's become. So yeah, you people are doing him very proud.
Yeah, I forget what his exact quote was in the 90s, but he said it's a certain an insane people's asylum or something like that. And honestly, to see people still melting down over libertarians choosing Trump over Chase Oliver, I made the case very, very clear. Like, there is no reason to vote Chase Oliver this election. And like, he literally got less votes than the person who told them not to, or told people not to vote for him. Chase and Trump are actually like aligned on the vast majority of issues, which is very, very funny. And it's a very, very peculiar thing. So, but the only difference is Trump can win. Trump did win.
And he's not gay.
And he's not gay, right? So, I mean, like right there, those two things alone, it's like, okay, well, if he can win and he's at least trying to pander to libertarians, I don't understand why you would even consider voting third party. Yeah, Chase is a progressive Democrat, but I mean, like, honestly, Trump is a progressive. He's very progressive culturally.
But you know why his name is Chase Oliver, right? Because Oliver is the name of the toddler he's chasing after.
Fucking Christ. That sounds all right.
Yeah.
Oh shit, man. All right. Well, you know what? I think we can probably wrap it there. I didn't want to go too long, man. And for anybody listening out there, make sure you go check out Old Glory Club. Redhawk, do you got anything else you want to plug before we wrap it up?
No, that's all I'll plug. We did an 8-hour stream covering the election last night on the OGC. It was tons of fun. We were making fun of all your favorite characters, like libertarians. We were making fun of Richard Spencer. We were making fun of the Oaxaca Chihuahua. We were making fun of all manner of people. It was great fun. We'll also be doing a Pony Express Radio tomorrow, just a very brief wrap up of all the election news and such. So see us over there. But yeah, that's all I got to promote for right now.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you everybody so much for tuning in. And Redhawk, I appreciate you jumping on last minute. And thank you everybody for getting me to over 1,000 subscribers. I feel like I fought tooth, nail, and claw to finally get there. But here we are. And I mainly want to shout out, Pete and you, Redhawk, because you guys have both done a lot to support me recently, and I really, really appreciate that. So everybody make sure you go subscribe to Redhawk's channel and go subscribe to the Old Glory Club. Check all that stuff out. That's my favorite right-wing organization. And other than that, I think we'll call her there. Redhawk, thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I was glad I was able to do this.
Of course. All right, everybody. Rock and roll.